Good morrow, my lovely little ghosts, and welcome to the Dark Orchard. I'm Laura, and it's Shark Week. As I said in my intro, this is Shark Week, and this video is about sharks. More specifically, I'm going to be talking about my fear of sharks, and I mean in depth about my fear of sharks. So, if you're interested about hearing about one of my absolute worst fears, stick around. So one of the biggest questions that I get asked when people learn that I'm afraid of sharks is, why? Why are you afraid of sharks? People say they're the puppies of the sea and they're harmless and they don't really like the taste of human meat. It's just always accidents when they bite them. Well, I just have a history and we're going to talk about it. So one of the first memories I have of watching a movie at my grandfather's house is watching Jaws with him. My grandfather had a knack for taking a scary movie and making it funny. So at a very, very young age, I learned that the shark was mechanic and that it wasn't real and I shouldn't be scared of it. Right? But I was totally scared of it. I was 100% terrified of the shark in that movie, which you were supposed to be. That's the whole point of Jaws, right? Like, that's the whole point of scary movies in general. You're supposed to be scared. So I'm not sure the timeline, because like I said, I was small. But sometime after watching Jaws with my grandfather, we went on a beach trip. So at this beach trip, I got into this little raft and was put in a pool. Small enough now that I could just curl up in this raft. So I did. We were in the pool, and I curled up in the raft, and I went to sleep, or at least I was daydreaming. Something happened, okay? Something happened that I was in my own world and had forgotten exactly that I was in a pool. I just knew I was in water and in a raft, and I feel like I might have like napped and then woken up because I remember this like overwhelming fear and not wanting to open my eyes because I knew I was floating and I was afraid I was out in the middle of the ocean. Like I was afraid that I had just somehow ended up in the ocean by myself in a tiny little raft. But yeah, little child me, terrified that I was out in the middle of the ocean being surrounded by sharks because, you know, cartoons do that all the time. It was probably in my brain at the time, and we had just watched that movie, so like all of that just led to that one little fearful moment when I was in a pool in a float. And I remember that fear so distinctly. The smell of the rubber on the float and the smell of the beach that was like right by the pool. And it just all seemed so real and so scary. I don't remember getting out of the pool. I don't remember anything about that because I was small. But that fear and that memory of that fear really stuck with me. So then maybe fast forward, I don't know, a couple of years, and I ended up on a boat. I was on a boat, and the people that I was on the boat with were swordfish fishing. First off, that boat looked very much like the fishing boat from Jaws. Secondly, they kept catching small sharks, and they would bop them on the nose and throw them back in the water. And that simple action of catching the tiny sharks and throwing them back in the water scarred me. I was terrified. I was screaming. I remember not getting anywhere near the back of the boat where they would pull the fish on because it was like the boat from Jaws, if I like flat at the back so that they could put the fish on there. But it was scary. It was really scary. And to me, tiny young me, those little sharks looked like big sharks. Like they looked like a decent sized shark. So terrifying again. Just adding to that fear here. So the next Shark Central event that happened, fast forward, I'm like 13 years old now, and I go on a field trip with my school group. The field trip is to the beach. And not just any beach, a beach where they have a dome aquarium. The aquarium was like an overhead dome aquarium. And they had just introduced some sharks into the tank. It was one of those aquariums that went from like the railing up over your head and then to a railing, and you would walk underneath it and see all the fish above you, and everybody else was so amazed and I was so scared. And I remember stepping up to the glass because my teacher was right behind me, and his name was Mr. Duncan. Mr. Duncan wanted to make me fearless. I swear he just wanted me to enjoy life and do things that scared me. And this scared me, but I did it because he pushed me up to the glass. And just about the moment that he pushed me up to the glass, one of the new sharks in the tank swam right at the glass and hit its nose. And when it hit its nose against the glass, it started to bleed. So when their new little shark hit its nose on the glass, it started to bleed, and shark blood went all over the little area in front of me, and it started biting at the glass. And even a little shark, when it starts biting at the glass, it's scary, especially in the face of a 13-year-old girl who already has shark fear. So that scarred me for life. And then we were supposed to go to the beach the next day. Of all the luck, of all the absolute luck, we were supposed to go from the beach to like this little sand island, and we were supposed to like go through the water to get there. Well, that morning we were staying at a school. We were actually sleeping in a school. Let me backtrack. School field trip was actually a school exchange. So that school came to our school, which had a NASA base kind of thing. Like, we worked a lot with NASA. We like built a trailer that looked like a NASA headquarters / shuttle, and it was just really cool. But anyway, we switched schools with the beach school so that we could learn about their stuff and they could learn about our stuff. We were sleeping in the school. So we all get up and we go to change into our swimsuits, and I started my period. So I'm freaking out. I know, 1, I don't want to get in the water. 2, sharks are attracted to blood. And 3, I'm afraid of sharks. So all 3 of those things, against me. Totally against me. So after weighing my odds here, I just am like, I'll just tell the teacher, and she'll tell me I can just stay at the school, or tell me I can just stand on the beach and not have to go in the water. She says, oh, you're fine. You can just go in the water. But I don't wanna. I ended up having to go in the ocean anyway. I don't think I've ever moved faster in my whole life. Like, to this day, I have not moved faster than I moved from the beach to that little sandy island, because I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. And I moved just as fast away from that little island. Those are the moments that I remember from that trip. And so that fear continued to manifest throughout my life. And actually in Raleigh, we have this history museum that has like different skeletons and different artifacts and actually like representations of things. There's this giant whale, and then in a room beside of that is like a Jaws-sized shark jaw. And when I turn the corner, every single time, no fail, I about scream. I'm terrified of it. Just the jaw. It's just the jaw with the teeth, and it still scares me so bad that my heart jumps. Terrified. That being said, a couple of years ago, I had a friend named Sarah. Sarah with an H. I was like the third wheel that she wanted. Like, I was like her assistant, I guess. Assistant is a good word. Her unpaid assistant. And when her boyfriend decided that he wanted to go to the movies, I would have to tag along. And this one time, they decided they wanted to go see a new movie called Shark Night. Now, I love Final Destination. I love Devon Sawa. Devon Sawa is amazing. The director of Final Destination was the director of Shark Night. And no spoilers here, but that movie is very appropriate to be talking about right now. And I kicked and screamed all the way into the theater. They had posters, big giant shark posters, and it was gonna be a big screening of this movie called Shark Night. And the premise of Shark Night was that teenagers were on vacation and they were at a lake, which just added to fear. Like, all over, just added to it. But at the same time, I watched the whole movie, and I think I would watch it again. I remember really enjoying the movie despite my fear being part of it. And honestly, here's where it all takes a turn. As terrified as I am of the creature, I can still watch the movie about it. Jaws is a really good movie. I still will jump every single time, and I'm still scared, but it's just something about it that I really enjoy now. It's a masterpiece, just like all of the classic horror movies are masterpieces. My favorite song off of the Ice Nine Kills Silver Scream album is Rocking the Boat, which is themed around Jaws. So going to see that movie was sort of my turning point, and at the beginning of the summer, I actually went to an aquarium. This was a much smaller aquarium than the one at the beach. This one was actually in Charlotte, North Carolina. Every corner that I turned, my heart would jump. I went with my mother. I'll show a clip of it, but I was standing in front of a window that looked into the big tank, and my mother goes, "There's a shark behind you." And instead of me just like panicking right away, my eyes get big and I go, "I know," and I walk forward. Like I walk as fast as I can away from that tank with my back to it. So you can kind of catch my fear as I walk away from it.
Shark behind you.
So that moment was pretty funny that I was instantly scared and instantly walked away from the window at the tank. My brain was just like, oh my god, there's a giant shark behind me and it's coming right towards me, just like when I was younger. Actually, looking back at the footage, it's still kind of scary for me, but for most people, it's funny. It's just a tiny little thing. They didn't have anything big in those tanks, and they honestly don't have anything big in the tanks, but my brain manifests so differently. Cool things they had was a seahorse tank. They're actually breeding seahorses. They have like a seahorse exchange program. They had really cool jellyfish. They had like these tiny clear jellyfish, and they had changing LED lights. So every few minutes the jellyfish would change color because they were clear, and when the light would hit them, they were so transparent that it looked like they were that color. That was really cool. And they had a petting tank, and I got to pet an urchin, and I loved petting the urchins. Urchins are one of my favorite sea creatures, so it was really cool that I actually got to touch one, and their little spines were so cute. But they also had like lobsters and things like that. And the last really cool thing that they had was a fish that was like the fish from Big Fish. I don't remember what they're called, but they had one. And it was literally the size of the big window. I think I have a clip of it, so if I do, I'll show it here. But it was huge. It was much bigger than the sharks, but for some reason I wasn't as scared of the big fish as I was the tiny little sharks. And of course they had stingrays, and the stingrays looked so pretty. I not only just went to the aquarium, I did a behind the scenes tour. I had them take me up to the top of the tank. And talk about scary, that was scary. I was honestly terrified. I was so scared. At one point the stingrays were like flopping their little fins up on the side, and I thought it was a shark, and my heart jumped. But honestly, it wasn't that bad. It was just one of those, wow, this is beautiful, but wow, this is scary moments. It was really cool seeing the turtle. His name is Neptune, and he was floating at the top for the time being and just like enjoying life, so that was cool. And it was really cool to see the stingrays waving to us. So I guess overall I did kind of face my fear there. While we're talking about facing my fears, there's actually a water park very close to where I live, and when I was a teenager, again like 13, 14, maybe even younger, me and my cousin would go there all the time, like almost every single day. We had season passes. So my cousin loved to scare me. There's 2 locations at this park that always scared me. One of them is called Shipwreck, and that's a pool that looks like a ship has wrecked in it. Obviously, shipwreck, wrecked ship. But my cousin used to tell me that they would let sharks into that pool at night, and that there were like grates in the 7-foot area where you could like swim down and see them, but it was just like only the people that could swim in the 7-foot. And I'm not even the 5 foot that I am now. I was like 4 foot something. So I couldn't even really stand up in the 5 foot that was there. So I never knew if that was real or not until of course I got old enough to realize that that was not actually real. She also told me that at the wave pool there was a graded section that they kept sharks in, and that's where they kept them during the day, and it led under the ground or under the walkways to that other pool, which my young brain thought was very feasible and totally something that could be happening. So my little brain thought that sharks were living behind the wave pool / under the walkway, and they just let them out into the wave pool and the shipwreck pool during the night. And then they just put them back in their little cage area like puppies when people were let into the park. So just to kind of check that out, now that I'm older, my friend and I went back to the park and kind of explored those different areas. We had a lot of fun. Of course, we didn't just go for that. We actually enjoyed it. We went on the raft ride. We went on Lazy River, just a bunch of different places, and enjoyed ourselves at a water park. But like remembering my cousin's little white lies about the sharks and all the stories she used to tell, and it was really nostalgic and helped me face that kind of fear. And while I'm on the subject of water parks, not the band, but an actual water park, I used to have a recurring dream. And that recurring dream manifested into actual fears and actual like daytime terrors. This nightmare was that I was on an island, and the island was like a water park, and the water park, because it was on an island, was out in the middle of the ocean. And the island itself was not a real island. It was an island made of like almost like plexiglass, but like really thick, like bulletproof kind of glass. And there were all these slides on it and different pools, but they were like new saltwater pools, because now you can actually have saltwater pools. It was all really elaborate for a nightmare. The same thing would happen every time. The first thing that would happen is that something would drop and there'd be a crack in the island, and then we'd find it, like someone would dig in the sand and find the crack, because it was water there and the sand was wet there but not wet anywhere else except for like the beach areas. The dream would change and I was in the hotel room area, and the crack had made its way to that hotel room and it busted the tub, and inside the tub area was just like this giant shark just agitating in the tub area because it had gotten stuck there, and then it just kind of disappeared down into the water, because when the tub broke it was just water underneath instead of the island where it was supposed to be because of the crack. And then for some reason I ended up on top of a slide, and it was just like an enclosed black slide, and I would slide down into the slide. At the very end of the slide, where the pool should be, there was a shark waiting, and all I would see was a shark's mouth opening, and then I'd wake up. Every time. Every time. So I'd wake up screaming, and that would be the end of that dream. But it was so detailed. It was like a movie. I would honestly love to see it made into a horror movie. If anyone wants to do that, I'm so game with helping writing the screenplay, because it's in my head. It's stuck in my brain. It's a reoccurring nightmare, and what better way to face your fears than to manifest them into something artistic. Before we start the video, I just want to note that I did my nails for Shark Week, and I actually did them a little Jaws themed. Stamped on a little boat, and then I sponged on some blood droplets. So since it's kind of chipping after being at the water park, you'll see a clip or pictures here. So that was my shark-themed story time for Shark Week. I know it's a little different than what I do. It's not food related or music related or anything like that, but I just wanted to share that story with you guys, and what better time to do it than in the smack dab middle of Shark Week. This video has been a few months in the making. I knew I was going to do it months and months and months ago. Some of you might even recall me asking when Shark Week was this year. It was because I was planning on doing this video. So I hope I did it justice, and I hope you actually enjoyed it. So that was me telling my Shark Week story time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you come around again soon. Say bye. Bye. Really? It's 10 p.m. Why is the hot now sign on? I didn't even know Krispy Kreme was open this late. And they were there. You didn't say if you were or not. Different kind of, but I just wanted to share that, but I just wanted to stay, but I did, but the milk tank. However, and while, bleh, and, oh my goodness,
and honestly, yes, hello, Brutal.
Skeleton. Yeah, I'm weird. I have a shark fear that manifested.
So the next big sharky event that happened, how do I say it?
At one point, I was big shark fear. Brucey shark, do 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 do, Brucey shark, do 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 do.